I'm going to solve this algebra equation step by step, and I'm going to tell you right now there are a lot of steps I need to take in order to get to the solution. But the real value of this video is not for you to watch me solve this one specific equation. Because what I want to do here is give you an insight to what I'm thinking. In other words, when I see an equation like this, like, hey, what type of equation is this? What are some of the methods or tactics, that I can take to solve this type of equation? What are some of the things that I need to look out for, etc., etc. So really, it's going to be the kind of the commentary that I'm going to kind of highlight as we go through the solution that I think is going to be the most valuable part of this video. But anyways, if you can solve this equation, that'd be fantastic. Matter of fact, put your answers into the comment section, and then we'll walk through the solution step by step. But before we get going, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is John, and I have been teaching middle and high school math for decades. And it really is my true passion to try to make learning math as easy as possible. So if you need assistance in mathematics, check out my math help program at tcmathacademy.com. You can find a link to that in the description below. And if this video helps you out, or if you just enjoy this content, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, as that definitely helps me out. Okay, so let's get into it. And the first thing we want to do is kind of recognize what type of equation are we dealing with, okay? Now, if you know the answer to that, put that into the comment section. And if you said, no, this kind of looks like a rational equation, let me go ahead and write this out, then you would be correct. Because effectively what we have here is some sort of fractions, right? We have 1 over x plus 1, and rational numbers in mathematics are effectively fractions, okay? It's numbers that can be expressed as fractions where the numerator and denominator are integers. Okay, now that's kind of a little technical type thing, but I'm kind of being informal here, all right, in terms of some of these definitions, and maybe that's not the best, most precise way to teach math. But listen, when you see fractions, I want you to think rational, okay? So this is a fractional type of equation. So in math, or in algebra rather, when we have fractions involved in an equation, you wouldn't say, oh, this is a fraction equation. We would call this a rational equation. Okay, now there are some other little things that we kind of have to look out for, but that's what we're dealing with. Okay, so this is what we have, and now we need to think to ourselves, all right, what can we do to make our life easier here? Well, there's all different sorts of things we can do. You could take this right here, because we have powers. This is multiplication, and we have this power kind of expression. And of course, then we have two fractions that maybe we need to subtract. Well, before we would subtract these two fractions, we got to multiply over here. So this is like a big kind of a mess right here, right? So what should we do? Well, I'm going to kind of think to myself, well, I can make this expression a little bit easier. So 1 over x plus 1 squared is the same thing as 1 over x plus 1, right, times 1 over x plus 1, and I could just think of that as 1, because now we're multiplying the numerators, times x plus 1 times x plus 1, or x plus 1, all this squared. So I'm going to rewrite this expression in this manner, 1 over x plus 1 squared, and here we go, okay? Now, the reason why I did that is because now I can just kind of look at this rational expression, and I can kind of clearly see the denominator. Okay, the denominator here is x plus 1 squared, and the denominator over here is just x plus 1, and now I have this 6, that's really 6 over 1, here's the denominator, and then I have 1 or 1 over 1, and here is the denominator. Now, why am I focused in on the denominator? Well, I have all these rational expressions, i.e. fractions, and a great technique that you should be thinking about when you have a bunch of fractions or rational expressions in an equation is to find the LCD, okay, the lowest common denominator, and multiply the entire equation by the LCD, because when you do this, it basically clears away the fractions, okay? Now, in this case, what is the LCD? Now, some of you probably can see this little work right down there. You're like, well, is it x plus 1 squared? Yes, indeed, it is x plus 1 squared. Now, finding the LCD of rational expressions, or even just numeric fractions, that, a lot of students don't know this as well as they think they do. And this is where your mastery of arithmetic and basic math comes into play. Because if you can't find the LCD of regular fractions, how can you find the LCD of things like this? This right here seems to be a place where a lot of students get frustrated or confused because it involves factoring, et cetera, et cetera. But anyways, you want to make sure that you understand how to find LCD of rational expressions. And again, I teach this all in my Algebra 1, Algebra 2 courses. So nevertheless, the LCD is x plus 1 squared, and we're going to now multiply the entire equation by the LCD, which of course is x plus 1 squared. And I'm doing that because I want to clear away all these fractions and just kind of, not deal with fractions more or less from this point forward. Now, what's the implications of me doing this? Okay, now this is, we have to be on high alert here. So anytime I multiply both sides of the equation by any expression that has a variable in it, like x or x plus 1, does it make a difference? Anytime we do this, we have to be on high alert because right here we can introduce extraneous solutions. And if you don't know what extraneous solutions are, well, again, I'll refer you to those additional resources. But basically, extraneous solutions are the following. When I multiply this entire equation by the LCD, I'm going to end up with an equation. I'm going to solve it, and I might say to myself, oh, there's the answer. Well, no, you could possibly have found yourself an extraneous solution, which is not the actual solution. It looks good, but in fact, it's not good. You have to be aware of this. Okay, so when you're studying or when you see a rational equation, typically we end up solving. Typically, the methods we take involves multiplying both sides of the equation by some sort of variable or variable expression. So just be on high alert, okay? Extraneous solutions can be introduced because we're doing this. All right, so let's go ahead and now take the next step here. Okay, so x plus 1 squared, I'm going to multiply it by every term in this equation. So x plus 1, now x plus 1 squared is over 1. All right, so hopefully you can kind of see what's going on here. So x plus 1 squared times, 6 times 1 over x plus 1 squared. And I could just look at this, or you can just think of this as 6 times this fraction. This is really 6 over x plus 1 squared, okay? Now, I'm not going to show you every single step, but hopefully you understand. So x plus 1 squared goes into x plus 1 squared. Those cross cancel. So I'm just left with 6. Okay, so that's the result of x plus 1 squared times this minus x plus 1 squared times this right here. So I can cross cancel on x plus 1. I have two x plus 1s up here, right? X plus 1 times x plus 1. So one of these can cross cancel there. So I'm left with x plus 1 in the numerator. But I got to keep that expression in this bracket because I have a subtraction situation going on here. This can easily get you in trouble. Okay, so always keep your parentheses. So this is the result of that. And let me erase this right here because this is getting kind of busy. All right. For those of you who are like, okay, Mr. YouTube Math Man, I'm already totally confused. No worries. Listen, this problem is, I would say, a medium level problem, okay, in terms of difficulty. All right, so we just did this times this and this times this is the result of that. And then x plus 1 squared times 1 is x plus 1 squared. Okay, so we just took the LCD and we multiplied it by the entire equation. And now I have myself a lovely equation with no fractions. That was the whole reason why we did this. But remember, by multiplying both sides of the equation by this expression, we could have extraneous solutions. So we have to check for those. But anyways, let's go ahead and now take the next step, which is to start cleaning up this equation. And let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so here is 6 minus parentheses x plus 1. Parentheses is equal to x plus 1 squared. Let's start over here. X plus 1 squared is x plus 1 times x plus 1. If you're up to speed on your binomial multiplication, polynomial multiplication, or FOIL method, this is equal to this, x squared plus 2x plus 1. Now, if you don't know how I went from here to here, well, you're definitely in dire need of review of polynomial multiplication. But listen, whatever you don't understand, just make yourself a math shopping list. Be like, okay, I need to pick up some skills on polynomial. I don't understand this. I don't understand it. That's the key to learning. Okay, you can't improve. Let me just say, you can't improve in something if you don't know what you don't understand. Okay, the worst way to approach math is to be like, okay, I can't solve this problem. Okay, well, what part of the problem? Well, there's like, 15 different sub skills here and, different subsets. That's why it's critical that you write out all the steps as best as you can, because you could compare your work to my work, or maybe your teacher can look at your work and be like, okay, that's good, that's good, that's good. Ooh, right here, this is totally wrong. If you fix this, everything else will be right from that point forward. So, all these things I'm telling you are critical if you truly want to be great in mathematics. Okay, so 6 minus parentheses x plus 1. Now we have to distribute this -1, so that's going to be negative x, and that's going to be a -1, right? This part right here gets a lot of students in trouble. Okay, so at this point, what are we dealing with? Well, I have an x squared situation, so now I have a quadratic equation. So what I want to do here is set this entire equation equal to 0, put this in what we call in standard form, and because I have x squared, 2x, and 1 over here, I'm just going to move these terms over to this side and set this thing equal to 0. So 6 minus 1 is 5, so we have 5 minus x, and then when I move the 5 and x over here to this side of the equation, I have 0 is equal to x squared plus 3x minus 4. Okay, so some of you might be like, okay, this is a reason why I hate algebra. There's so much steps. Well, listen, if you think this is a lot of work, wait till you get into like calculus or pre-calculus. This is nothing. This is just to warm up a nice little stretch. But no problem. Again, we're just taking a journey one step at a time. Okay, so now we have to solve this lovely quadratic equation. And that is what we're going to do next. But before we do that, I'm going to ask you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I wouldn't interrupt this lovely problem if it wasn't that important for me, but it's not really about me, okay? It's about you and others like you that are interested in math or people that need help in mathematics. My main mission on my YouTube channel is to stop people from giving up on mathematics. And that can easily happen. Look at this problem right here. It's a lot of steps. Okay, most people would just be like, this is too much, especially if it's taught in a very technical way. Like, okay, class, sit up straight. I'm going to review how to solve a rational equation and extraneous roots and quadratic equations. Most people are going to fall asleep, and then they're going to be like frustrated because they get grades like this. I'm trying to teach math in a way that people like and understand, but you yourself need to be, doing your part. And what's that? You got to put in your full effort. All right. So if you want to learn and you're willing to do the work, then what you need is great math instruction. So anyways, by you subscribing, it really does help that algorithm find people like this, because I don't want people to give up on math. It's critical that you stick with it. And if you're going to do that, make sure to subscribe as well. Okay, so thanks for listening to my little commercial. Back to the problem. Okay, so here we have x squared plus 3x minus 4 is equal to 0. This is a quadratic equation, a huge topic in algebra. How can we solve quadratic equations? All different sorts of ways, okay? Sometimes you can take the square root of both sides, okay? Other times we'll have to use a quadratic formula, but if you can factor, especially if we have a quadratic trinomial, if we can factor that thing, then that is awesome. That's always the best route. And of course, in this particular case, we can factor this quadratic trinomial. Now, again, all right, if you're like, I don't even know what you're doing, Mr. YouTube Math Man, then you need to review factoring. Factoring may very well be the #1 most important skill you need to master to pass algebra. Well, I'll say it this way. If you don't know how to factor, you will not be able to pass an algebra course. You absolutely must know how to factor. So if you don't understand how I'm going from here to here, then I would call this an algebra emergency. All right, so x squared plus 3x minus 4, we can factor into these two binomials right here. X plus 4 times x minus 1 is equal to 0. Now, the reason why this is so awesome, because now we get to use the zero product property. So let's just kind of think about this. I have this thing, okay, I have this thing being multiplied by this thing, and the answer is 0. So if I said to you, hey, I have two numbers, and when I multiply them together, the answer is 0. Well, what does that tell you about one of those numbers or both of both of those numbers? Well, the only way you multiply two numbers together and you get an answer of 0 is that one or both of those numbers are 0. That's called the zero product property. So we love in algebra, we can factor and use this because to solve this equation, all we have to do is set each factor equal to 0 because one or both of these factors is 0. So x plus 4 is equal to 0, x minus 1 is equal to 0, and when we solve these basic equations, we get x is equal to negative 4 and x is equal to 1. Okay, so at this point, I want to go back to the beginning of this video when I said if you turned in your work just like this and your teacher gives you a 9 out of 10 or maybe like an 8 out of 10 or maybe even worse yet 7 out of 10, you would be very unhappy, okay, because these are in fact the correct solutions. But we don't know this at this point, okay? At this point, these are just possible solutions because these could be extraneous roots incognito, okay? We have no way of knowing. So we must, okay, it's not optional, we must check and verify each solution. So we got x is equal to 1, x is equal to negative 4, and we got to go back to the original equation. So we're going to plug in for x right here, 1, and we're going to see if in fact these solutions work in the original equation. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that now. So I'm replacing x with 1, and what do I have here? So I got, you're going to have to follow with me here because I'm kind of not showing you all the arithmetic. So I got 1 over 1 plus 1 is 2. Okay, 1 over 2, 1/2 squared is 1/4. So I have 6 times 1/4 minus 1 over 1 plus 1 is 2. So this is 1/2. All right, so I'm going to just check this work on the left and see if it in fact is equal to 1. So let's go ahead and finish this up. So I have 6 times 1/4, that's 6/4 minus 1/2. 1/2 is the same thing as 2 over 4. And so now I have these fractions both have the same denominator. So 6 minus 2 is 4. So 4 over 4, 4 divided by 4 is in fact 1. And so therefore, x is equal to 1 is a good solution. Okay, now it's verified. So you must show this work. Okay, 1 is good. Let's go ahead and now see if negative 4 is good. All right, same process. We're going to replace these x's with negative 4. And we got to do all this lovely work. Again, not optional. And another reminder of why you need to be amazing at dealing with the fractions and arithmetic, etc., etc. Now, some of you need some review on, let's just say some of you out there are, in an algebra course or maybe algebra 2, whatever the case might be, or just want to learn algebra at a higher level, but you also need a little review on arithmetic. Check out my Math Skills Rebuilder course. That's a new course I just made. You'll find a link to it in the description below because I start with basic math, all that good stuff, fractions, and all those things that some of you may need to review because you cannot verify this problem, this solution, unless you're strong with fractions and arithmetic. All right, let's go ahead and replace all our x's with negative 4. So we have 1 over negative 4 plus 1, that's going to be negative 3. So I have 1 over negative 3, or negative 1/3 squared. Okay, I got to handle that. And this is going to be minus 1 over negative 3 right here. Okay, so let's go down and finish this up. So negative 1/3 squared is going to be a positive 1/9. Okay, because negative times negative is positive. So 6 times this positive 1/9 minus this negative 1/3. And of course, we got to see if this is equal to 1. All right, so let's go ahead and finish this up. Okay, so 6 times 1/9. Okay, well, 6 times 1/9 is 6/9, but I can reduce that down to 2/3. Okay, so this right here, the result of doing this is 2/3. And now I have minus a minus, which would be, of course, plus. Okay, plus 1/3. So 2/3 plus 1/3 is what? Well, it's 3/3. 3 over 3 is indeed 1. Okay, so that is the final solution. Now, some of you might be saying, again, Mr. YouTube Math Man, this is why I don't like algebra. I mean, there's just so much work. Well, listen, here's the thing. This is, I would say kind of advanced level algebra, but these problems, are achievable, okay? you're kind of, if you're at this level of math, you're beyond the basic, equations like this. These were the good old days, right? Oh, 2x minus 1, is equal to 9. I could solve that. Well, now you have more sophisticated equations, but here, this just takes, you're doing one step at a time. Okay. Same thing with this equation. You're just taking it one step at a time. Now, there might be multiple different steps to get to the solution, but that's okay. Okay. As long as you're staying focused and disciplined, you can get to the solution. But here is the key, right? The key is that instead of doing a problem like this, where you just have to focus this much, in a problem where there's a lot more steps and skills involved, you have to focus that much. Okay. So focus, discipline, neatness, structure, it counts big time. Matter of fact, if you don't practice these habits, okay, being neat and really showing your work and double checking your work, there's just no way you're going to be able to do well at this level of math. And it's certainly within your range to do well. Okay, I mean, if you are taking this a math course at this level, again, this might be like an Algebra 1, Algebra 2 college, you could certainly learn this, but you have to do your part as well. Okay, so with all that being said, I definitely wish you all the best in your mathematics adventures. Thank you for your time, and have a great day.